This is a special Career Track presentation.
Assertiveness. This may be one of today's most misunderstood skills. Too many times we've seen people ride roughshod over others, getting their way every time, no matter what the price, and calling it assertiveness. But that's not what being assertive really is. True assertiveness is a communication style, plain and simple, that you choose in order to get your message across. Assertive people know how to express their ideas directly, taking into consideration the rights and feelings of others. Assertiveness is not about winning, it's about solving problems. Welcome to this special Career Track presentation, Assertive Communication Skills, with author and presenter Carol Price. One of Career Track's most popular trainers, Carol has developed this program with you in mind. She's taken real-life situations, things that happen to all of us, and examined them in detail, pulling out what works, tossing aside what doesn't. Assertive communication skills is hands-on, carefully building experience on experience, assessing your performance as you progress, always keeping the goal in sight, developing your assertive behavior. So now let's join Carol Price for Side 1 of Assertive Communication Skills.
We are going to start right out today with some simple questions. They're easy. I want to know what you think assertiveness is, and I want you to be thinking about these questions. Second, what does it mean to you? To be assertive, what does it really mean? Because often being assertive to us is not what it really means out there. Also, let's find out if you are assertive. And we're going to look and we're going to actually test you today to see if you are. And when we find out, you may be very surprised. We're going to look at 3 different situations that many people have trouble dealing with. After each one, you'll be given an opportunity to identify how you would respond in a similar situation. Now, we've got to look at it in a bit of a different way. There's a difference in how you would respond if you were having a good day and if you were having a bad day. And the difference is, on a good day, things are easier. On a bad day, obviously, they're not. Why a bad day? Simply, I might not be as good on that kind of a day. If you have a day where everything's working well, and you are caught in a situation, you're probably going to be all right. But if you are tired, if you are overworked, understaffed, you may deal very differently. So let's take a look at the first situation.
I don't really have any.
Morning, Donna.
Morning, Donna.
Morning.
By the way, the receptionist called. She won't be in today.
Okay, then you two will have to help out and answer the phones.
All right.
Geez, Donna, I can't believe you're so loaded down with work.
You're such an inspiration.
Absolutely, such a positive influence, and on a Monday.
It's just you and me today, computer. Oh, no.
All files have been
Not
erased.
today.
All files
This
have
can't
been
happen
erased.
today.
Thank you, and have a nice day.
Now, let's review what just happened. Let's say you're Donna. You are the office manager, and you observe a phone ringing on a desk shared by Mary and Tom, who are your subordinates. Neither seems to hear it, but you know doggone well they do. Receptionist is not coming in. We heard that. Did you already deal with the receptionist not coming in? Did you deal? Sure, and we think that we dealt, but did we deal in a specific and direct way? I want you to turn to page 3 in your workbook and go through the possible responses that are printed there. And the instructions are real important here. I want you to put a B, which stands for behavior, next to the response that you would most likely give in this given situation. Now, remember, be honest, this needs to be your most likely response, the one you would probably use, not the one you think that I'm looking for. This isn't a test. There is no right or wrong answer. It is simply an assessment to find out where you stand today with your assertiveness skills. Once you've completed that, go back and look at the responses again, and this time choose the response that you would have liked to have been able to give, and mark that one with a G for goal. Now pause your tape and complete the exercise. When you're done, please start the tape again and we'll discuss your responses. Now let's look at the first response.
Why bother? They're so busy talking, they probably wouldn't hear me either.
How do you think Donna felt about herself and the work that needed to be done? How do you think she felt about herself? Overwhelmed. Overwhelmed, good word, good word. Overwhelmed. Is this non-response sending any kind of a message to the people that work for her? What kind of a message?
Powerlessness.
Good. Powerlessness is real important in this response because it's going to take care of whatever comes next, and we'll see that shortly. And what do you think the message of powerlessness is going to do to Donna's ability in the next time she needs to ask for something? Reba, what do you think?
Well, I think that they're probably just going to listen to her and just forget what she said later.
So it may be a repeat of what we just saw. Good response, excellent response. We're going to look at the second response now and see how that fits with your idea of assertiveness.
How come nobody but me ever bothers to answer the phone around here? Why do I have to do it all?
Well, here we have a dramatic breakthrough. And yet it's still passive. At least now we know what Donna wants. However, do Tom or Mary know what Donna wants? And in fact, do they have any idea that she was talking to them? There's a misconception about assertiveness that all we need to do is make a direct request or statement to get what we want. But in reality, if we are not specific in our language, that is, who is responsible, who is accountable for what we want, we run the risk of being ignored. Because Donna didn't say, she didn't assign accountability in her request, that is, she didn't say who should answer the phone, both Tom and Mary could have easily chosen to ignore her. They could act as if she wasn't even talking to them. Does Donna's vague request allow Tom and Mary to beat the system? Yes. Certainly. You bet it does. Now let's look at an additional response and see how that one fits.
Somebody answer the phone. Now!
Well, Donna now has Tom and Mary's attention. If I'm aggressive, I require my needs to be met at any expense. The aggressive person doesn't care about the needs of others or about he or she is perceived. What sort of behavior is Donna encouraging? What do you think? What is she encouraging? Childlike, good word. Sounds like a mom. Absolutely. And do we know that when we sound like a mom, we often get childlike responses back? Sure, exactly as you said. How do you think Donna feels about herself now?
Embarrassed.
Ooh, good word, embarrassed, sure. Any other words?
A little out of control.
Little out of control. Ooh, not real comfortable with herself and being able to deal. Do you think it's different than it was before?
No.
Maybe same results, but not differently? Are Tom and Mary going to be friendly and helpful if they do buckle down and answer the phone? Or do you think, and this is real important, do you think that either Tom or Mary just might try to get even? Yeah, it's a good possibility. Let's look at the fourth response.
The phone. The phone. Fine. Don't answer the phone. But if you think you're getting more than 30 minutes for lunch this afternoon, it ain't gonna happen.
Well, I think we can honestly say that Donna feels better. Passive-aggressive people avoid direct responses. Instead, they get even with other people later for real or imagined slights. But do Tom and Mary know that Donna is planning to get even? Do you think they even know it? No, certainly not. And when she does, will they even remember why? Will they feel that they've been treated fairly? And after all this is over, how do you bet Tom and Mary are going to feel about working with Donna tomorrow, next week, and in the future? How do you think? Not supportive? Sure. And maybe even looking for another opportunity to get back at her? This is the most important question of all. Has the original goal, that was the one about getting the phone answered by the appropriate person, has it been achieved? No. Look at the next response and see if it doesn't make it work better.
Tom, I want you to answer that call right now.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, fine, yes.
And since the receptionist is out today, I want you to answer and log all calls the rest of this morning.
Fine.
And Mary, I'd like you to take over after lunch.
Sure, no problem.
So how does Donna feel about herself now? What do you think? She's feeling perhaps powerful, feeling better about herself. How do you think that Donna feels about her abilities as a manager? Confident, yeah, much more comfortable that I can get people to do things. Are Tom and Mary clear about what Donna's asking? And have they been given a message about ignoring Donna? Now I want you to consider this. Do you think that Tom or Mary are going to feel anger or resentment from the way Donna handled the situation this time? No. Probably not. The key assertive techniques we saw in Donna's assertive response, and I'd like you to put them in your workbook if you will, were direct, specific requests and specific accountability in those requests. Now let's look at a second situation and see how you would respond. Remember again, be honest with yourself.
Yeah, I don't really have any.
And so these fourth quarter projections show a good surge in the production demands. These, of course, are counterbalanced by the low Framince demand we have encountered in marketing the new model versus redesigning an existing product. Please remember that these figures are based on the sales department estimates for product releases into the next quarter and do not include returns or overstacks. And so the numbers
Great
may
presentation.
not be as secure as
Should
we
be.
would
He's
hope
been
them to
working
be.
for weeks on this.
But I think this is clearly explained by the chart I have prepared. It's a beauty, isn't it? If anybody has any questions at this time, I would be glad to answer them.
Drivel.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ratner. What was that you said?
I said drivel.
I'm not sure what you mean, sir.
I said drivel, and I mean drivel.
But I don't understand.
That's the first sensible thing you've said all day. When I listen to reports, I want more than just drivel and
gibberish, sir.
Precisely. Now, you'll probably expect me to believe that you actually spent time on this report, that you gave it one iota of new thought. What were you thinking, anyway?
I'm sorry. I guess I just didn't make it clear enough. I'll be glad to go back and rework the numbers.
Now let's review the situation. Tom has spent 3 weeks preparing this information. He knows his facts and figures, and now out of left field, totally unexpectedly, his boss has attacked him, has attacked his work and his integrity, and he has done it all in public. Now remember, this isn't just anybody. This is the boss. So you can imagine the feelings that may be going through Tom's head, the anger, the embarrassment he experienced in front of his peers, and the fear of what's going to happen next. And because those thoughts are now occupying Tom's brain, how do you think his body is responding? What physical conditions do you think are showing up? Which ones? Sweating. I would bet he is sweating. What else do you think? Probably shaking. Good. Absolutely. What do you think? Jeff?
Feeling powerless.
Again, feeling powerless, and that translating into the body. Will any of these responses, mental or physical, have a positive effect on his response to the boss? So turn to page 4 in your workbook, and again, go through the responses that are printed there. Using the B for behavior and the G for goal, indicate the response that you would most likely give in this situation, along with the response that is the goal that you would like to learn how to use. Please pause the tape, and when you're done, start the tape again, and we will again discuss your responses. Now let's take a look at the possible responses that Tom could have given.
That you gave it one iota of new thought. What were you thinking anyway?
Hey, you can't talk to me like that. If you don't like the way I do these reports, you can just go do them yourself.
Okay, truth time here. Now, although I imagine most of you would not have done this as a real-life response, is there anybody here who would at least have liked to try this with the boss? Not the one that you have with you sitting next to you today. I understand that. Because that's the one that's perfect in almost every way. But have you ever had a boss you would have liked to have done this with? More than one time, even, perhaps? And since we're talking about real life, what do you imagine would have happened if you really had done this one? What do you think would have happened?
Fired.
Gone! You bet! You would have done it once and only one time. What else might have happened? What do you think? Could he have attacked back?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he may have had more experience in that attacking than you did. So escalation might have happened. Let's look at a different response and see if this one would be more comfortable.
Oh, well, I'm sorry if you misunderstood what I was saying. I mean, I can go back and rework the numbers if you want.
I want you to note two very important points in Tom's response. One, he's apologizing for something, although he has no idea what he's apologizing for. And in fact, the apology is for work that he really thought he did well. And secondly, what did Tom gain by his response? What did he get? Jeff, what did he get?
Nothing but zero self-respect.
Absolutely. And that's real important. Zero self-respect, because he knows he did well, but wasn't willing to stand up for it. Now, he's allowed animosity to be created. He has set a precedent for everyone in that room to accept attack without accountability. And how do you think he's feeling about himself now? Anxious to take on another project? No. Confident in his abilities? Probably not. And a welcome team member by anyone else in that room who just saw him roll over and die? Let's take a look at the next possible choice and see if that's the one you chose.
That you gave it one iota of new thought? What were you thinking anyway? Well? Now, what's the use? Let's go, all of you, except for Tom.
Just one little alteration here on this chart, and the up arrow is now the down arrow. Now just wait until the boss goes through the stockholders tomorrow.
So the question becomes, what did we actually hear? Tom responded with fear, and that's the passive part of passive aggressiveness, because he was uncomfortable standing up for his work, for his right to be treated fairly, and his right to defend himself from public attack. How do you think Tom felt at the point of attack?
Defensive?
Defensive, sure, and that's a good descriptive word as well. Any other thoughts on how he felt?
Low.
Just felt low, you bet. Do you think there may have been some anger there? Sure, how dare you do this to me? Typical of the passive-aggressive, there is no response at the time of discomfort. But as soon as concrete thinking takes place, that getting even syndrome takes over. Now, by doing this, by getting even, is Tom displaying, number one, a team attitude? No, certainly not. Or is he setting himself up for future and perhaps more damaging confrontations? Let's take a look at that final response.
That you gave it one iota of new thought? What were you thinking anyway?
Actually, Mr. Ratner, I did spend 3 weeks preparing this report, and I've checked the figures 4 times. I'd appreciate it if you'd tell me specifically where we differ.
If you chose this response, you made the assertive choice. And it's assertive for 3 very important reasons. 1, Tom corrected an untruth. When challenged by the boss about working hard, Tom replied that he had in fact worked for 3 weeks in preparing the information, which is a direct and specific response. Additionally, he did not pause, nor did he gasp prior to delivering the factual information, which could have allowed the boss, Mr. Ratner, to attack again. And third, the most important word in Tom's dialogue was the word differ. When Tom said, "Where do we differ?" he did not automatically assume, as a passive person might, that if challenged by someone in authority, he must be wrong. Instead, with the word differ, he required accountability from Mr. Ratner for his attack in a very non-threatening way. And at the same time, Tom asked for specific and direct facts, which changed the encounter from person to person to fact to fact. In responding that way, how do you believe Mr. Ratner perceived Tom's ability and confidence in himself to handle difficult situations?
Highly confident.
Highly confident. He's ready to take on another one. And how do you think Tom assessed his own performance as the meeting ended? Was he pleased with how he dealt? Certainly. Also, how do you think Tom's co-workers assessed his response and, this is real important, and his ability to back them up in a situation that's similar if it's required? What do you think, Jane?
Respectfully.
Respectfully, and they want him on their team now. They can count on him. Real important. The assertiveness techniques stated in this situation, and please write them, were number 1, stated truth, or in this case, corrected an untruth, and number 2, did not accept inappropriate behavior.
This is the end of Side 1. Please turn this tape over to continue with assertive communication skills with Carol Price. Welcome to Side 2 of Assertive Communication Skills with author and presenter Carol Price. As we proceed with this special career track presentation, please keep your workbook nearby in order to complete your assertiveness assessment. Remember, there are no right or wrong answers here. This is simply a chance for you to understand where you stand today. So be honest, and as you continue through the assessment, use the letter B for the behavior you would probably use, and the letter G to indicate your goal. Now, once again, here's Carol.
So bearing in mind what we've seen so far, let's take a look at still another situation.
Simon, please
Elizabeth, give me a couple minutes, would you?
Sure, Larry, what's up?
Let's go inside my office, where it's cramped but messy.
But it's you, Larry. It's definitely you.
Sit down. Look, I got a call from Arnie in Creative.
Oh, yeah, I turned my big project in last week. How does he like it?
He hates it.
What?
Of course, I may be severely understating the case here.
I don't understand. Arnie told me everything was fine.
Well, then we have different stories. Arnie told me the material was late and incomplete. He thinks you dogged it and then waited till the last minute to turn it in. That makes Creative miss their deadlines and look bad.
Now turn to page 5 in your workbook and again, go through the responses that are printed there. Using the B for behavior and the G for goal, indicate the response that you would most likely give in this situation, along with that response that is the goal. In other words, the way you would like to learn how to respond. So pause the tape, and when you're done, please start the tape again, and we'll discuss your responses. Let's take a look at the responses and note not only what your response is, but who you are responding to.
That makes Creative miss their deadlines and look bad.
I'm sorry. I tried to give them what they wanted. I guess I just didn't work it through well enough.
If this is the response that you chose, let's take a closer look. Number 1, did you respond to the appropriate person? No, of course not. The truth is the boss was the immediate issue because he's right there in your face. But is he the source of the problem? No. Because you chose not to go directly to the source, this is the passive response. With this response, what will the boss assume about your work? Incompetent, that it wasn't okay, and that you've been caught. Is the assumption accurate? No. Isn't this Elizabeth's fault? Now think about this. In her response, didn't she set herself up to have it be her fault? After all this, do you think that the boss is going to see you as someone who will stand up for yourself? No, and finally, how are you going to feel about yourself if you were Elizabeth and about Arnie? How would you feel? You're going to like yourself rolling over again and dying? Are you going to be comfortable that you can handle whatever else comes your way if attacked? Probably not. You should go directly to the source, who is, in this case, Arnie in Creative, but still, this may not turn out exactly as you had hoped.
Oh, Elizabeth, I was just going over your project. I talked to Larry about it.
I don't even know where to start with you, Arnie. Next time you have a problem with me, you come talk to me directly and don't sneak around to Larry trying to undercut me. And anyway, I wasn't late, and I gave you everything you needed. And as for the quality of the work, if you or your staff were any kind of artist at all, you could do a great job with exactly what I gave you.
Okay, now this choice may appear to be the logical response based on the anger that you felt at being blasted unfairly. However, in truth, this is an aggressive response with no basis in fact. Did Elizabeth ask Arnie directly for specifics before just launching into him? Or did she even give him a chance to respond? No. Right. She didn't ask, and in fact, she cut him off when he even tried to respond. One of the other choices you could have picked also allows you to release your anger, but to your boss instead of to Arnie. Let's look at that response.
Well, then we have different stories. Arnie told me the material was late and incomplete. He thinks you dogged it and then waited to the last minute to turn it in. That makes Creative miss their deadlines and look bad.
Well, you know the quality of people we have in Creative. Business people, executives? I don't think so. I doubt any of them are worth their salt.
Some of the key questions in this response are, 1, have I gone to the source of the problem? No. Question 2, is making nasty remarks about the creative staff really addressing the issue? No. And question 3, how does Elizabeth now look to her boss? Negative. Maybe even like a jerk covering up, perhaps. And the 4th question, given some time, 2 minutes, 2 hours, or 2 days, will Elizabeth still be comfortable with the words she chose and with their consequences? No. How often have we said something in the heat of emotion and we're very sorry about it, either right away or relatively soon? What might the consequences in this situation actually be? What could they be?
Creating a problem?
Good. Creating a problem exactly as you said it was going to be. Excellent. Any other?
Credibility?
Credibility is truly questioned. If you picked the 4th response, you actually have the best chance of succeeding. Let's see how that one might look.
Oh, Elizabeth, I was just going over your project. I talked to Larry about it.
So I've heard, and I have to admit, I was somewhat surprised when Larry told me you were less than happy with the content and thought I missed the deadline. Actually, dogging it was the phrase I think you used.
Well, I think that may have been overstated.
Well, I thought we could talk about this so that next time I can be sure to give you everything your department needs.
Sure. That would be fine, I guess.
That's cleared up a lot.
Yeah, for both of us.
Now, Arnie, please, next time, if you have a problem with something I've done, could you please just call me directly? I'd really appreciate it.
We need to ask some of the same questions that we ask about the other responses. 1, how did Elizabeth feel this time after dealing with Arnie?
Confident.
Confident? Sure. And number 2, did she address the facts this time? Yes. Number 3, when she solves this problem at the source, how will her boss view her performance? Positively. As if she can handle things again if given that situation. And number 4, by dealing with the problem in this way, has she set herself up for success in the future? Yes. With her boss? Yes. With Arnie? And how about with any other departments that she might have to work with in the future? The assertive techniques, and again, I'd like you to write them in your workbook, are, number 1, speaking to the facts, allowing for corrections, and accepting accountability by going to the source of the situation.
And so, by going through these situations and completing your assessment, you are not only able to see your own strengths and areas for improvement, but at the same time discover the 4 most common communication styles: passive, aggressive, passive-aggressive, and the style that is your goal, assertive. Now, let's join Carol as she develops an overall definition of assertiveness.
Dr. Andrew Salter defined assertiveness in the following way, and I quote, "The excitatory person," this is his term for assertiveness, "is direct, responding outwardly to his environment. When confronted with a problem, he takes immediate constructive action. He sincerely likes people, but he does not care what they may think. He makes rapid decisions, and he likes responsibility. Above all, the excitatory person is free of anxiety." And it's important to note here that Salter is recognized as the father of modern behavior therapy. The second definition is our dictionary definition, which is to state positively, to declare, to affirm, to maintain or defend rights or claims. The third definition is from our Declaration of Independence, and it states, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. From these bold words, combined with the strong threads you discovered in the situations we just looked at, we can develop our own working definition of assertiveness for this program. And that is that assertiveness means standing up for one's rights without violating the rights of any other person. Key phrase here is the rights of any other person, which means that your rights are equal to, not less than or more than, the rights of any other person. Those in your family, those that you work with, or strangers on the street. To be able to stand up for your rights, you must first be aware of each of them. Right number one, I am entitled to try anything, anytime, if I am willing to accept the consequences. Right number two, I am entitled to succeed and I am entitled to fail. Right number three, I am entitled to design my life and my lifestyle. Right number four, I'm entitled to meet my needs and or to ask to have them met. And right number five, I am entitled to celebrate my worth based on my own standards. Here is a key point to remember. Assertiveness means acting in your own interest, to maintain your own rights, but without violating those rights of any other person. Passive people violate their own rights, meaning they don't stand up for what they want or ask for what they deserve. Aggressive people violate other people's rights. And assertive people take care of their own rights without violating the rights of others. Assertive behavior is a choice that allows you comfort, that allows you pride, and allows you success. But first and foremost, it is a choice that only you can make. So let's begin by setting up the 4 communication models. Passive, which is the first, is hoping or hinting that others will act on our needs. Passive people communicate indirectly. They do not say what they want. Rather, they expect others to figure it out and give them what they need. When they don't get what they want, they pout. Or they can move into being passive-aggressive. One of the things that you need to keep in mind is that passive behavior is a game. Passive people are very concerned about how others see them. It's very important to them that they are liked by everybody, and this causes them to, on occasion, behave in self-sacrificing ways. But later, they can resent the person they made that sacrifice for. This behavior perpetuates a negative cycle. Let's review some of the examples of passive behavior, and I want you to pay special attention to the language and the tone of voice that they use.
Why bother? They're so busy talking, they probably wouldn't hear me either.
New thought. What were you thinking anyway?
I'm sorry. I guess I just didn't make it clear enough. I'll be glad to go back and rework the numbers.
That makes creative miss their deadlines and look bad.
I'm sorry. I tried to give them what they wanted. I guess I just didn't work it through well enough.
Please stop the tape and complete the exercise on page 7 of your workbook. Pick out the passive words, phrases, and passive tone you heard and write them down in the space provided.
Again, in looking at those responses, what are the common phrases that you heard? And that's the most blatant one, absolutely. I'm sorry. You heard why bother? Some of you heard, I guess I just didn't. What words specifically were used that diminished and demeaned the people using them? The I, and again, the I'm sorry, those specific, although phrases, also words, puts us in a position of being nailed again. What was the tone of voice you heard in all three responses?
Whiny.
Whiny, good. What else?
Apologetic.
Apologetic, excellent. Vocal behaviors that we heard where they spoke softly or tentatively. They were ready to be yelled at. And probably the most telling characteristic in all three situations was when each chose the language of the defeated. So what about aggressive people? What sets them apart? Let's take a look at the language and the tone of voice they use.
Somebody answer the phone. Now!
That you gave it one iota of new thought. What were you thinking anyway?
Hey, you can't talk to me like that. If you don't like the way I do these reports, you can just go do them yourself.
Oh, Elizabeth, I was just going over your project. I talked to Larry about it.
I don't even know where to start with you, Arnie. Next time you have a problem with me, you come talk to me directly and don't sneak around to Larry trying to undercut me. And anyway, I wasn't late, and I gave you everything you needed. And as for the quality of the work, if you or your staff were any kind of artist at all, you could do a great job with exactly what I gave you.
Please stop the tape and complete the exercise on page 8 of your workbook. Pick out the aggressive words, phrases, and aggressive tones you heard and write them down in the space provided.
We heard loud words. We heard inflammatory words. We heard threatening words. If you ever do that again, I will. We heard short, choppy sentences. For example, well, oh, if I'm aggressive, I require my needs to be met at any expense. The aggressive person doesn't care about the needs of others or about how he or she is perceived. He or she certainly doesn't care about other people's feelings. This type of behavior is perpetuated because, for the most part, it works, at least in the short run. Other people are hesitant to take on that aggressive person because it's so unpleasant. They choose their words not to be demeaned, as we saw in the passive, but to do the demeaning. And quite often, they will attack the person rather than staying focused on the issue. And they are expecting fear to be the base for not being questioned back. So we've seen passive and aggressive vocal cues. Let's now take a look at the style that combines both. And this time, I want you to pay attention to the language and the tone of voice that they are giving.
How come nobody but me ever bothers to answer the phone around here? Why do I have to do it all?
New thought? What were you thinking anyway? Well? Oh, what's the use? Let's go, all of you, except for Tom.
Just one little alteration here on this chart, and the up arrow is now the down arrow. Now just wait until the boss goes through the stockholders.
Waited to the last minute to turn it in. That makes creative miss their deadlines and look bad.
Well, you know the quality of people we have in creative. Business people, executives? I don't think so. I doubt any of them are worth their salt.
Please stop the tape and complete the exercise on page 9 of your workbook. Pick out the passive-aggressive words, phrases, and passive-aggressive tones you heard and write them down in the space provided.
Passive-aggressive people avoid direct responses. Instead, they get even with other people later for real or imagined slights. Passive-aggressive behavior is interesting because it's a hybrid of the other two. Passive people become passive-aggressive when they're fed up. Aggressive people behave passive-aggressively when they perceive that they cannot act in their normal aggressive fashion, and that's usually when the other person has authority. For instance, an aggressive person who works for an aggressive boss may not tackle that boss directly, but might get even later, as we saw in the sabotage example a few minutes ago. Passive behavior cues tend to be sarcasm, sniping, and indirect criticism, and lack of eye contact. It's often hard to tell when a person will behave passive-aggressively because passive-aggressive people collect what we call green stamps. In other words, they may respond passively to a person attacking, but they will put one little bitty stamp in a book just to remind themselves they were attacked. As the passive continues to be attacked and continues to put that one little bitty stamp in the book for each and every attack, before long, their book is full. When they're attacked again, which is now common behavior, without anyone knowing the book is full, it's time for the passive to redeem that full book. And that redemption of the book is an unexpected, aggressive response. They may blow up, or they may get even in a covert way. Because they don't tell others something is bothering them, they give permission to continue behavior that offends them. Now, we've looked at 3 communication styles that don't work very well. Let's look at the 4th, which is the assertive response. And this time, I want you to pay attention to the language and the tone of voice that they are giving.
Tom, I want you to answer that call right now.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, fine, yes.
And since the receptionist is out today, I want you to answer and log all calls the rest of this morning.
Fine.
And Mary, I'd like you to take over after lunch.
Sure, no problem. You gave it one iota of new thought? What were you thinking anyway?
Actually, Mr. Ratner, I did spend 3 weeks preparing this report, and I've checked the figures 4 times. I'd appreciate it if you'd tell me specifically where we differ.
Oh, Elizabeth, I was just going over your project. I talked to Larry about it.
So I've heard, and I have to admit, I was somewhat surprised when Larry told me you were less than happy with the content and thought I missed the deadline. Actually, dogging it was the phrase I think you used.
Well, I think that may have been overstated.
Well, I thought we could talk about this so that next time I can be sure to give you everything your department needs.
Sure. That would be fine, I guess.
That's cleared up a lot.
Yeah, for both of us.
Now, Arnie, please, next time, if you have a problem with something I've done, could you please just call me directly? I'd really appreciate it.
Please stop the tape and complete the exercise on page 10 of your workbook. Pick out the assertive words, phrases, and assertive tone you heard and write them down in the space provided.
The assertive person values the needs of all people. Assertive people state what they want, but they do it in a way that takes into account what others need. Assertive people hold themselves and others accountable, especially to speak up. In other words, assertive people believe they and others have the responsibility to ask for what they need. When assertive people deal with passive people, they may become annoyed that the other person doesn't just say what he wants, rather than bringing it up later when nothing can be done about it. Physical cues to assertiveness are: space is respected, heads were held straight, not bowed. This posture demonstrates equality and self-confidence. Shoulders are held back, projecting a straightforward approach. The assertive person uses direct eye contact, again to demonstrate comfort with that situation. A confident stance also demonstrates comfort. Some of those vocal behaviors we heard include a reasonable, confident tone of voice, a delivery that was even, that was firm, direct, and most importantly, had no indication whatsoever of fear or anger. What words showed the speaker had confidence in what he said? What words did you hear? right now, so they're going to deal with it as it happens. What else?
Responsibility.
Responsibility, good, and that's one of the key words. How about, again, the word differ, rather than where did I mess up? And we often hear that as we're speaking and uncomfortable with what we've given. The word actually, which stated that he would not accept the notion that he hadn't worked hard. And the next time, as you mentioned, rather than, oh no, what am I going to do now? In conclusion, assertive vocal cues, when backed up by body cues, demonstrate to the other person that they will be dealt with fairly and with respect. You can see that the assertive choice is the most beneficial and effective option for everyone. Assertiveness is your choice, a choice that gives you power, pride, and the confidence to handle any situation.
This is the end of Side 2. Please replace this with Side 3 to continue with assertive communication skills with Carol Price.